and welcome to Rock Your Block. I'm your host, Tia Young. Today we have with us Jamila Madyun, a fashion designer and sewing enthusiast. Jamila is the founder of her own design company, Stitched with Style. We are so excited to have her in the studio today. Jamila, welcome to Rock Your Block.
Hi, thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Good. I thank you for coming in all this rain.
I know, right?
Well, let's get started. Jamila, what first sparked your interest in sewing?
The funny thing about it is that my mom, she was a single parent, and of course they put you into different activities growing up as a child. So I actually started out with piano. She had a girlfriend that used to babysit me, and she actually specialized in sewing. I would spend so much time there that eventually she would say, "Can you pass me the scissors? Can you pass me the pins? Do you mind cutting this out?" And from then, I just started to really gain an enthusiasm for it, and my mom put me in sewing classes, and I've been sewing ever since.
Well, how old were you when you first started your sewing classes?
I started my first class when I was 8 years old.
Get out of here, really?
Yes.
I didn't
Yes.
even realize that they would take children that young.
Well, yes, the children that I teach, they actually start out at 5.
Oh, no. Well, we're
5
gonna,
years old.
We're going to get into your students a little bit later.
All right, sounds great.
Good. So where did you get the inspiration to decide that you wanted to make a career out of sewing and fashion?
Well, it started out as a hobby, but as I started to get older and attending high school, I would make different garments and people would want to purchase the garments. So I was kind of at a crossroad when it came to choosing which college I was going to go to, and I decided to go with the art field. I've always been surrounded by the arts. A lot of my friends and associates, they also have their hands and they dibble and dabble in the arts. So it just really made sense for me. So once I went to college and I got my degree in it, the sky was the limit. I haven't turned back since.
So do you sketch as well? Is that all a part of your making your designs, or do you have someone, you tell them, I want this to go that way?
I wish it was that easy. Maybe one day I can get to that level. I must admit, and I must be very transparent with you right now, I do not really enjoy sketching. It's not my forte. I'm the type of designer where if you show me a picture or we sit down and we have a conversation, I can make it. I can make anything you wish. I can do sketches in a way of helping my client to understand what we're going to develop, but I wouldn't say they're a Picasso illustration by far, no.
No, not that. Well, you mentioned, you know, with going through college and all. Tell us a little bit about what that experience is like, and what type of degree did you earn as a fashion designer?
Well, I loved my college experience. If I could go back tomorrow, I would. I enjoyed it so much because it allowed me to jump right into my field. I feel like a lot of times when you attend college, you have to take your pre-courses, and they don't necessarily let you get into it maybe until 2 years in.
Right, your junior year.
Exactly, but we instantly went in with drawing, sketching, sewing, and because I already came from such a strong background, I was able to excel rapidly within that department. And I have a degree in fashion design, and I minored in business because I feel like that's such a great partnership.
So you knew probably before you even went to college where you wanted to be.
Well, yeah.
As far as an entrepreneur.
My mom is an entrepreneur. She owns her own hair salon, so that's all I know.
And she's very good,
Yeah.
by the way.
Thank you.
She does my mom's hair, and she does an excellent job.
I'll let her know you said that.
And you know, I'm thinking while we're talking, did you design her shop? Because her shop is different than most shops. I mean, you go there and you feel like you're in a spa or something. I mean, it's very relaxing, very comforting. The colors are well coordinated in her shop. So did you have a hand in that?
I definitely had a hand in that. I must say the hair techniques didn't catch on throughout life. However, design, I made sure to bring those elements within her salon. Sometimes people get the assumption of me that I'm not good with my hands, but I'm a builder. I go to Home Depot. I understand how to work with a saw and nails and a hammer. So I went in, I did visual display with Saks Fifth Avenue
Oh,
after
that's
graduation.
good.
So that kind of went hand in hand with being able to go into her salon and get the colors in order and the placement of certain figures within it.
So landing that job at Saks, tell us a little bit about that. Were you just bold enough? Because a lot of people may not have been. I mean, that's a high-end store.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's kind of just something that I fell into, just to be honest with you. I feel like I was in the right place at the right time, and I exhibited style. I was working in retail, you know, just like a lot of us do in college when you're on your breaks and things of that nature. And the visual department was down. And the visual director would always swing by and he would say, hey, can you do me a huge favor? Do you mind putting a dress on that mannequin? And soon it got to the point where I didn't want to work with the customers. I only wanted to do visual.
Yes.
So I worked at the Tyson's Corner location for a while.
Oh, okay.
And after that, I was transferred to the store in New York. And you know, that just opens up so many doors of opportunity because their window display and their visual design department is more like production, almost like set design. We create environments.
Wow.
So based on the designer's inspiration, like let's say the designer is inspired by the forest, we may actually go out and purchase trees and create like that type of forest atmosphere so that the consumer can understand the thought process behind the collections.
So just living in New York, was that a different experience than here in the DC area?
Completely different.
Was it? I mean, how did you adjust to that?
Well, of course you have the stereotypes, you know, it's the city that never sleeps and it's the city of lights, and it is like that, you know, it's always that hustle and bustle, but I must say that my experience in New York built me strong. In life, you may hit a pitfall. Certain opportunities may not go your way. And in New York, you don't have a chance to wallow in that. You instantly have to get up and go to the next thing. You have to instantly get up and go to the next opportunity. So I'm so thankful that I had that experience and I'm able to implement that in my everyday life now.
Right. And how long were you in New York?
I was in New York for 6 years.
Oh, wow.
That's 6 years. So that's a good amount of time.
Yeah, it is.
And when I decided to leave my job, they were very surprised. But I just felt like that chapter was coming to a close. I'm originally from this area. So I kind of need that balance of the calm. I was ready for a calmer lifestyle.
Wow. How has your work evolved since you designed and branded your label?
I would say as an artist, we are very emotional when it comes to our work. So depending upon what you're going through at certain points in life, like when I was going through the transition of leaving New York and migrating back here, I wasn't designing as much. But now that I've gotten accustomed to being back in the area, I've been here now for almost like 2 years.
Okay.
I've been sewing and designing more than I have, I would say, my whole life.
Really? Here, back home?
Yeah, I just feel like the energy and the spirit of New York kind of just stayed within me, and it just gave me that drive and that push. And I've just been making so much clothing,
but
so much.
It's interesting that you're saying that you love New York and it was wonderful, but when you came back home, there was still another transition that you had to go through.
New York is a wonderful place to visit, but living there is a whole different ball game. And I still go. I go frequently. I visit New York at least 3 times a month. I have to go for business. I go to buy supplies. I must say that the fashion district there has spoiled me. So it's really hard for me to get fabric and supplies that I need here. So I'll even do a day trip and I'll go with my suitcase and I'll fill it with fabric and supplies and I'll come back here.
You come back here. Now, do you work with menswear or are you just mostly focused in women's designs?
I'm primarily focused in women's wear. However, there are a few men, be it my uncle or different people that I have relationship with that kind of beg me to do items. So I've done a blazer or a suit or a pair of slacks, but I don't like to broadcast that.
Right. Well, is there a big difference? I would think there's a big difference with men. Are they as picky as we women can be?
Men, they aren't as picky, but their clothing has a lot of detail to it that us as women we don't have. It even comes down to simple things like pockets. You know, like women, we're okay with not having pockets. Sometimes we don't want them because they can add bulk to the shape of our clothing.
Right.
But men, I mean, they have so many pockets and details and top stitching and buttons. It's just too much.
It's a lot. It's a lot of
It's
work.
too much.
Yeah. So we know that you've done work here. You've done work in New York. Have you done work in other states? And what about national? Well, not national, but international.
Not international. I've studied abroad, you know, when I was in college, and
Where'd you go?
since then, I've been to Paris.
Wow.
I've been to Milan. I was actually just in Milan a couple of months ago. So I love traveling. I go there for the most part to get inspiration, but I haven't gone yet as far as like an opportunity.
Right.
Fingers crossed.
So who are you getting your inspiration from when you go to other parts of the world?
I'm a classic designer. I'm what you would call a technical designer, which means that I like things simplistic with clean lines. I like a tailored fit on a woman. So I get inspired by some of the designers like Dior. You know, that's my favorite. He specialized in women's suiting, and that was actually my senior collection in college. So that's what I'm famous for, honestly, is women's suiting.
Women's suiting. Okay.
Women's suiting and tailoring is my specialty.
So you said a senior in college, so is that like a project that you have to do before you graduate?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So for design school, before you graduate, you have to develop a collection for your senior year, and from this collection you will get picked to be showcased in the annual fashion show.
Wow.
It's a big deal. It's a huge process. You have to go in front of a jury, and they have to pick if you're going to move to the next cycle.
Right.
So it's almost like you're auditioning to participate in the fashion show.
Right. Do you have other designers that come and that are there
Yes.
as well?
So one person who is so near and dear to my heart is Talley. He is the editor at large at Vogue, and he actually sits on the board of my college. And he actually picked for me to be in the fashion show.
Wow.
And I was one of the chosen people to meet him backstage. So that was an amazing opportunity.
Wow, what an honor. Well, you know, we're going to take a short station break, but we'll be right back. So don't touch that dial.
When I look in the mirror,
Do I like what I see?
yes. I like my teeth and I like my tongue. I like my nose. I like my ears.
And my eyes?
And I like my face. Me gusta todo.
I see a perfect reflection of me.
And I wouldn't change a single thing.
Because I am enough.
Welcome back. You're watching Rock Your Block with our special guest, fashion designer and sewing enthusiast, Jamila Madyun. Jamila, now you're a designer in your own right,
Yes, I'm a designer.
but you also teach.
yes.
So tell us that transition and who are you teaching?
Well, while I was living in New York, I had a girlfriend who was originally from this area that asked me to help her to construct a pair of pants, which I found to be kind of weird because I'm like, well, I'm a designer. Why can't I just make the pants for you? So I went and I taught her how to make the pants, and she was so pleased by my patience and how we connected during the process. So she actually suggested that I start doing classes and workshops teaching others how to sew. That's something that never crossed my mind before.
Wow.
So she organized a class for me. I came home one weekend, I taught the class, and I truly feel like my passion was revealed. So that's originally why I started the Stitch with Style company. That's based with me teaching. Because originally it was just, you know, my name as a designer, Jamila Madyun. You can buy a piece of my clothing, but Stitch with Style is primarily the teaching business.
It's the teaching business. Well, when she asked you to help her construct a pair of pants, did you go with her to the store to purchase fabric? Did you help her with the pattern? I mean, did you go from A to Z?
Yes, we definitely had to go from A to Z. That's why I was kind of a surprise that she wanted help versus just wanting to order, not from me, but just from any designer. But yes, I took her to the fabric store. I talked to her about her body measurements. We picked out a pattern. I taught her how to read and understand a pattern and all of its different symbols. From there, we did pattern layout and pinning your pattern to your fabric, cutting it, and then actually putting it together. So it was a weekend field adventure.
Right. What about the sewing machine? Did she already have a sewing machine?
She did already have a sewing machine, so I will give her that much.
Yeah.
She did have that step, and she knew how to use it, but actually putting garments together, she had never done that before. So this was her very first pair of pants that she had ever made, her piece of clothing.
Speaking of sewing machines, there are a few women that I know that's been a challenge for them because there's so much out there on the market. And I'm thinking right now, do you have any tips on purchasing that first sewing machine?
Yes. So when purchasing a sewing machine, because as you know, there are several different kinds.
Yeah.
You have the standard home sewing machine. There are heavy duty machines. There are industrial machines, which I absolutely love, but that's more for someone who 24 hours a day, like they're solely dedicated to sewing. So you definitely don't want to move into that direction unless you have a business or you're starting a clothing line of that nature. One tip is to think about the fabrics that you want to sew. So they have a home sewing machine that is actually used for heavy duty projects. So if you know that you're someone who loves working with leather, or you aspire to work with leather, or with denim, some of those heavier fabrics, you'll want to go with a heavy duty machine.
Okay.
Anything else, you want to just go with your standard. Don't go with a computerized, just wait, because you want to really get the feel of the machine. And then you decide if you want to move on.
Because the computerized, you're going to have to take time probably to really learn how to work that.
Exactly. Like I got a computerized machine, I want to say 15 years ago, once I really transitioned, and I never traded it in. I never upgraded on that particular machine because it's so many parts, it's so many functions, so you can keep it, you know?
Right, right. Well, today you are working with middle grade students, I guess from 12 to what, 15, 16?
Actually younger. So I'm
goodness.
doing ages 8, which is funny because that's when I started. So 8 to 15.
Is that the youngest that you've worked with for 8-year-old?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I've worked with some younger, but that's more of a one-on-one. In big classroom settings, I like to start at 8 because that's an age where they can really, you know, focus and be in tune, and they understand the responsibility of using some of these tools.
Okay. So tell us about that. Tell us about your work with the children.
Okay, so right now I am under contract with Arena Stage.
Oh,
they run a summer program. And it's funny because when I first left New York, I walked away from my job without a backup, just going off of faith and saying, hey, I'm going to move forward with this business. I'm going to start it. So I look online because I'm like, well, I need something in between time. And I saw them advertising a position. It was supposed to be temporary, just for that summer. But I fell in love with the children. And it's almost like they come to me and they're like, Miss Jamila, you'll be here next summer. And now I'm locked in.
Wow.
So this is my 3rd summer with them. The projects are intensive. My kids as young as 8, they learn to install zippers. They learn about aligning. They learn about different body measurements. So they produce garments.
That is amazing. Now you mentioned something that has piqued my interest. You said you walked off of your job.
Yes.
Sight unseen. What mental or emotional types of things were you going through? Because that's a bold step. That's a bold step.
I'm a planner. Like I am a type A personality in that way, but I know it sounds kind of silly or, you know, but it was something within me that just felt like that chapter of my life was coming to a close. When you work for other companies, sometimes you can only get to a certain level.
True.
You know, and I just felt like I had reached the high level and I needed something else. I needed a challenge. And my lease was getting ready to be up. So that made a lot of sense. I didn't feel like I wanted to renew it. It was time to close my chapter with Saks Fifth Avenue. I left them in great standing. I won different awards. I even developed a display that was shipped out to all of the surrounding stores, even internationally. So once you've reached those levels, it's kind of time to just move on and do something different.
Right, right. What influences your work? For instance, if you're walking along the Potomac and you see a beautiful bird flying across the Potomac, are those the types of things that influence what you do, you know, in everyday life? What influences your work?
For some people it does, and it sounds great. I feel like a lot of artists, we do that, like, well, I just gazed at the sky and it was a certain shade of blue, but honestly, I think about my own wardrobe. I think about different pieces that I love, and I try to push them to the next level. So I take different techniques, and maybe I may move it in different spots. Even the dress that I'm wearing today, this all stemmed from a maxi skirt, right? So we all know that a maxi skirt kind of hugs your waistline,
right, it does.
And then it flares out. So my idea was like, why not bring that skirt to my sleeve? So I brought that technique to different areas. I actually wore a pair of pants yesterday where I brought it to the pants leg. So it was like a different take on a bell bottom. So you don't want to reinvent the wheel, because at the end of the day, pants are pants, shirts are shirts.
Right.
So what different element can you bring to it to make it unique, make it fresh, make it different, bring a new take on it?
Right. Now, are you saying that this was a maxi skirt at one time?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
That's really something. So do you make a pattern to make that change, or you just get the scissors and start cutting?
Well, the best way to make people understand is, I'm sure you've seen Project Runway, right?
Yeah.
So you've seen them in the workroom, and sometimes there's a mannequin that they work on, that they drape on.
Okay.
So it's almost like you're drawing out your design on the mannequin. And then you bring it to life.
And then you just bring it to life.
Bring it to
Well,
life.
that's absolutely gorgeous. I like that. I love the
thank you.
colors. They're so bold and make a statement.
I am known for colors and print. So if you buy some of my pieces, or if you follow me as a designer, you have to be courageous in that way with the prints.
So what are some of the lessons that you have learned, you know, coming up from a little girl, being here in the DMV area, then going to New York, and then, you know, I'm thinking that you must have ran right into a wall on some things. How did you overcome? Talk about that.
My biggest thing is just being able to take risk and know that it's going to be okay. I come from a very strong foundation. I come from a loving family who has supported me in every step I've taken throughout life, even with my independence. You know, my mom always says, okay, well, I haven't really had to be there for you, but just in case. So it's really knowing that just in case is there. So why not leap? Take a chance while I'm in the position where I can do that, because some people can't.
That's true.
Because they have others depending on them. So right now at this place in my life, I don't. So I can take more risk.
Right.
So
and
that's
if you
my
make a
big
mistake, it doesn't really affect anyone else.
Exactly. It just affects me.
It just affects you.
And I will be fine.
I like that. That's great. What advice would you give to young designers?
My advice to young designers would be to, okay, I have to go back to a story in that.
Okay.
So when I was getting ready to go to design school, you know, you can always get scholarships to go to college. I had to develop a portfolio in order to do that. My mother doesn't come from an art background. No one in my family came from an art background, so I wasn't able to get that advice. So now when I see youth who are truly interested in fashion or in design, I'm putting them in a position where they can start to develop a portfolio for their work. That's what's most important.
Yes.
Because when someone comes to you with an opportunity, how can you show them your work?
Right. You don't
Where
have
are your pictures? Where are your documentation that shows your level and how you've progressed?
Right.
So that's my biggest thing, just making sure that even small things you may think, oh, this is a little project, I made a couple of mistakes, document it. Document all your work.
Right.
Even from simple things, styling, you may put together a fabulous outfit. Document it. People want to see, because within that we kind of see your eye, we see your development as a creative mind. So focus on the documentation of your work. That's the most important thing.
What do you want to achieve before the end of this year?
I want to expand my audience with my classes. I teach classes and workshops throughout the DMV. My business is mobile. I have up to 20 sewing machines right now that I travel with. So I've done partnerships with the Boys and Girls Club, the Girl Scouts, different church organizations, different sororities. So it's just making sure that I'm spreading my passion to an abundance of people. The most exciting thing that I've done thus far is I've actually developed classes that are for men only.
Ooh, okay.
And that's not something at all that you come across.
Right.
So my agenda is to really push that. I've been training an instructor that I just hired that is a man, so he will actually be in a position to start to lead those classes.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes.
That's really good. And as we speak, your information is scrolling on the screen, so we are hoping that you'll get some calls.
Yes, that would be great. That would be great.
Well, you know, I want to thank you so much for coming here today, especially in all this rain. You've been so inspiring to me, and I know to our viewers as well. So thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. You know, folks, sewing is a lost art in our homes and communities, and this skill is so integral to your everyday existence. We should all become sewing enthusiasts. And for you guys out there is absolutely nothing wrong with knowing how to sew a button on your shirt or sew a hem in those pants, okay? See you next week. Bye-bye.